Welcome to Let's Take a Walk, brought to you by the Feld Group Institute. In today's episode, we dive into the evolving challenges and opportunities of leadership in a rapidly changing, remote-first world. Charlie is joined by Jeff Roemer, Feld Group Institute affiliate and retired FedEx VP. Charlie and Jeff explore the critical role of effective time management, the importance of building strong CFO partnerships, and strategies for maintaining employee engagement across global teams. They share insights on fostering personal relationships to drive strategic alignment, navigating the complexities of remote work, and protecting teams from burnout in high-pressure environments. Join us as we unpack how to lead with clarity, connection, and purpose, no matter the chaos you face. Now here's Charlie.
Hey, Jeff, it's so great to see you today. I'm looking forward to our conversation because it's kind of high on my list. When I started so many decades ago, life was so simple. It moved in what I would see as slow motion, and it was easy to manage your time, and I think as a leader, the most important asset you have is where you invest your time. Right? You could either go here, you could go there, you could go to this meeting or that meeting, or you could go to, and so how you allocate your time sets the tone for your organization. But every decade that I've been part of this, things have sped up, right? There was a time when there was no email, right? You actually got a letter, right? I mean, there was nothing going on. And back then, there was time to think. In fact, when I worked for IBM in the first decade of my career, they had think signs all over the place. That's what the purpose was, to stop and think about what you're doing. Come forward 5 or 6 decades, and the frenetic nature of the way organizations work is just mind-blowing in terms of do, move from one thing to the next thing, one meeting to the next thing, 200 emails a day, right? Working into the night, working on the weekends, trying to figure out how to just stay afloat has been the arc of this career. And, one of the things that always impressed me about you at FedEx when you were a leader in the FedEx ground group, ground grew from $7 billion to $30 billion in a pretty short period of time, and it was pretty aggressively growing and changing, and yet the teams that you led were very calm, right, and very focused and delivered a lot. So I always looked at you as a leader that not just managed your calendar and your time better than most, but also protected your teams and you gave them the ability to get the work done in the midst of all this chaos. So I just wanted to make that a topic because I know it's high on everybody's mind right now. Is I have no time to think. I will tell you, I've heard that 30 times in the last month from different groups. There's no time to step back and think. And boy, if you don't think in this world and create a calmness about all this chaos, you'll never get anything done. So let's talk a little bit about the environments that you created and how you thought about the rhythm of the week, the calendar management, and, calm in the middle of a storm kind of approach.
Yeah, great topic, Charlie. And first of all, great to be with you. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to our leaders out there. And as leaders, really, time is our most valuable asset. So it's something that we just, you can't get it back. It's finite. So how do you take advantage of the time that you have to really be an effective leader? And Charlie, you're right. Back in the day, we didn't have email. I remember going on vacation, and the only thing you worried about coming back was your in basket and how many pieces of paper you'd have in your in basket. Today, you come back to hundreds, actually thousands of emails after a week of vacation. So
Mhm.
how do you deal with all that? You really, to be a successful leader, you really have to be effective with time management. And it truly impacts what you and your organization are doing from a strategic and tactical standpoint, and how you effectively can make decisions. How do you focus on the highest value items, the right things? What should your team be working on? But I think the overarching benefit of time and your time is how you promote strong employee engagement. How do you create that strong team with leveraging your time for employee engagement?
Yep.
So if we take each of those points, let's start with strategic. It truly is prioritizing the activities that align with the long-term business goals. What is the team trying to accomplish to really drive the business?
Mhm.
And from a tactical standpoint, you really got to go back to that strategic exercise and what are those long-term goals? A lot of mistakes I think leaders make is they let the tactical side of things drive what what's what should be strategic, but that's not the case. It's strategy, and then you do your tactical activities to match that strategy is really what's important.
Mhm.
I remember, Charlie, back in the 1990s, quality driven management was a big exercise, right? And we got
Mhm.
caught up in that. And before we knew it, we were working on a lot of initiatives that would add $1 million here, a couple $1 million there to the bottom line. But it was so small, small little initiatives. It wasn't a big focus, strategic focus for the enterprise. And what we got caught up doing was saving millions of dollars and walking away from hundreds of millions of dollars. And we saw that shift when we got acquired by FedEx. We saw that shift, and it started with the CFO, where we started thinking bigger. Where's the most value? Where should the company be focused, both from an engineering and from an IT perspective, building out new capabilities in the right fashion, architecting things in the right way so that we could move with speed. And before you knew it, we started saving hundreds of millions of dollars instead of the little incremental values that we were focused in on.
Mhm. Yeah, Jeff, when you look at the capacity that a team has to deliver, one of the things that eats organizations up is context switching, right? And, that's hard enough when you control all of the resources to get the particular initiative done. But in this modern architecture, as we move through the years, you're dependent on other organizations showing up, some common services, some infrastructure, security in order to deliver anything. And it seems like the problem gets geometric if time management is not part of the company culture or the department. In other words, one manager can't keep anything going unless it's kind of fairly broad, right, across the groups because of the dependencies. So, were there any mechanisms that you use to guard the borders of your group, right, and keep them focused on what you guys used to call keep the main thing the main thing, right?
Yeah, really, really good question. And the most effective way that I saw that we did that at FedEx is once a month we had a senior leadership meeting, and it involved all the way up to the CEO of FedEx Ground, down to directors, key directors working on initiatives. And that was
Mhm.
pretty much our alignment meeting. That's where we would get together and talk about the status of the current initiatives, getting different perspectives in
Mhm.
that room. So it was a free and open space to really talk about the issues. Really, really important that you create that culture of trust and respect, because bad news doesn't get better with age for sure.
Mhm.
So you want to get that bad news out as quickly as possible so that management, all the way up to the CEO, can make decisions, better decisions to really help the teams,
Mhm.
right? Keep them
Yep.
focused on the right things. And the more timely you get bad news, the more effective you can be in resolving those issues so that you can
Mm.
get the team back on board. So it started with those monthly meetings, and then we would have team meetings. They would come down from that every 2 weeks to just ensure that everybody was focused and working on the right things, and those barriers were getting busted as quickly as possible.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the idea of kind of a rhythm to the month of meetings, people that there's so much need for so many people to be meeting constantly. You have daily stand-ups and you know, and then you have this meeting and that meeting, and you got to go to this. And pretty soon you got, you know, 4 hours a week to actually get your job done, which is to write some code or stand up some servers. And you end up doing that at night and on the weekend because the whole week is taken up with meetings that somebody called, not because they're trying to make your life miserable, but because there's so much coordination required between groups. And, one of the things that I found that worked for me was to uh, create a calendar rhythm to the month. And if you notice, the executive committee is not as chaotic as the rest of the organization because they publish a calendar. I mean, I knew as part of the executive committee that there was an analyst meeting once a quarter, what the date was. If you know there's an analyst meeting, you know that 2, 3 weeks before you would have to start preparing them, So there was a calendar. And at the senior leadership level, that's critical because people travel. They go to customers, they go here, they go there. But if you know that the third Thursday of every month, you're going to have a review. So, that notion of top down once a month leading to the next level, every other week, maybe leading to, the director teams meeting once a week with their teams, but it was published, it was known, it's going to be Thursday or it's going to be Monday. We're going to, as opposed to you walk in the beginning of the week, you got your calendar booked up and here come all these meetings and you're blowing off your work and you end up working nights and weekends and not getting the job done right. Did you have any mechanisms to protect teams? And I don't mean it in a negative way, like isolate them, because I think that that's got to be even more difficult in a Zoom kind of world where people are, or in a global company where people are in different time zones. And, how much productive work do you get done is all got to be orchestrated by the leaders of the group. Otherwise, the teams will get eaten alive.
Yeah, that it's a great point. Because I've seen it happen where you spend so much time just getting prepared, having your team getting prepared for these senior officer meetings that they don't have time to do their own work. They don't have
Hmm.
time to get the actual task that they need to get done
Right.
completed so that we could stay on schedule. So you got to be aware of that and protect your team. And there was a saying that we had even all the way up to the senior officers. It is the slides don't have to be pretty. We're not
Hmm.
here to manage by PowerPoint.
Right.
What is the key content that we want to get through, and where does the focus need to be? Where do the decisions need to be made? So and again, it doesn't have to be pretty. So those slides don't need to be pretty, but it's a great point. You need to make sure that there's time allocated during the week. If everybody knows when things are due, then it takes some stress off the team. But also make sure that you're providing time for the team to actually do the task at hand
Yeah, I
before
think
you know it. your
Yeah.
key players are just doing status reporting and they're not focused on architecting systems and
Mhm.
designing systems, that type of thing.
Yeah. And it causes burnout and frustration and laps over into family and health and all kinds of stuff if you don't create I keep getting back to, as a leader, you don't do any work anymore. You create the environment for other people to be productive. Does the scaled agile world help with structure, or is it even more chaotic? In other words, are all the rituals and timings help get structure or hurt it?
It definitely helps because, and we are on a 10-week cadence. So every 10 weeks, we would get together as a team, the entire team,
Hmm.
and talk about here's what we're going to work on in the next 10 weeks. So it was those short increments of work that they could really get focused in on so that we
Hmm.
can meet the bigger goals of
Hmm.
the organization. But it also provided one of the things I led in with is employee engagement and fostering that culture that you want. And it's and you got to take advantage of agile meetings, that type of thing, to meet with your team. And Charlie, you were the best at this. I know going through leadership training with you and some of the things that you would do as a leader
Hmm.
to make sure that you had employee engagement. I mean, I was taking notes and I'm like, wow, this guy really spends a lot of time with his employees. But
Hmm.
there's so many benefits of doing that, right? You can determine who is really doing the work, who are your best
Hmm.
employees. Why is that important? Because you want to take care of those employees when it comes
Hmm.
time to merit increases in that time, those type of things. You want to make sure you're taking care of your key players. Those
Yeah.
top 10% of your team are the ones that you definitely want to have hanging around. So you better take care of them. So that gives you that type of opportunity by talking to them a lot. And then
Mhm.
you could also provide feedback and coach other members of the team so that they could even do better. But most importantly, you stay connected with the team. It
Mhm.
becomes your leadership style, right? That
Yeah.
you're engaged, you're
Mhm.
creating a positive work environment of trust and respect for your team. And it shows your team that you're in the fight with them. And it
Mhm.
leads to huge dividends, right? In the form of loyalty. They'll be loyal to you if you know you're in the battle with them. But
Yep.
the challenge is, how do you do this today in this remote work environment via Zoom, right? We have Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting. How do you keep that employee engagement? But there's one big pro with Zoom, and that is everybody's on an equal playing field now.
Mhm.
Everybody has their box on the Zoom, where in the past I've seen half the team in the room and then a couple members maybe on a Zoom call. And those members that were on the Zoom call, they had trouble interjecting their thoughts. Where today with Zoom, now everybody's got an equal playing field. So everybody has
Yeah.
the opportunity to insert their thoughts and ideas, no matter where you're at in the world, right?
Yeah. I hadn't thought about it that way because we've got to start figuring out how to leverage the remote. When I say remote, it could be from home, but people are remote from the city. I mean, people chose to live in different cities and, not just global and Europe and India, but it's becoming a global team sport. And the question is, how do you take the assets that it brings to you? Like you said, everybody can be on, as opposed to you couldn't get a room big enough to put everybody in. So how do you leverage the technology to keep everybody engaged? I used to walk the halls. There are no halls anymore. You go up to Pittsburgh and everybody's in Memphis. You go to California and everybody's in Europe. And it's like, and the time zones and everything else, but you've still got to get the work done and not just, but do it in a way that gives you a cadence that gives your folks a chance to do two things, get that work done, and have a life. Right? I really worry about, and we've had a couple of podcasts where we brought in people's health and well-being, and you know, most of the people that I've been around, you don't have to drag into work. You got to send them home from work because they're going to kill themselves, right? They're going to have a stroke or a divorce if they don't watch what they do. So how do you tend to that in a remote world? I think we have to figure it out, but I'm right now we're at a transition point where we don't have the old walk the halls and know everybody, but we haven't solved the remote virtual leverage that can be solved, I'm sure, if we put some thought to it.
Yeah, it's a great point. You do have to leverage Zoom for those one-on-one conversations, right? Instead of meeting somebody in the hallway or stopping over to their pod, you may have to send a quick chat message. Hey, are you available to talk for 5 minutes? And just
Mm-hmm.
make sure they're doing good,
Mm-hmm.
for sure, because it's really important. And you get it's back to engagement, right? You start learning about the employee and their family activities, and they may have kids. I know for me personally, when my kids were young, growing up, doing sports, my boss said, make sure you do their sporting events because that's going to happen one time. They're going to be
Mm-hmm.
grown up and gone, and it's something that you don't want to miss. And boy, does that create loyalty. Your flexibility by allowing your employees to those family activities, you're going to get dividends paid back to you tenfold because it creates loyalty. They'll jump
Mm-hmm.
back on when they have time later in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, you'll put your kids to bed and you'll jump on later at night to get some
Yeah.
work done to make up for the couple hours that your boss gave you earlier in the day to do a family sporting event or something. Kids are
Mm-hmm.
doing all kinds of things, right? They got band, they
Yeah.
got speech debates, that those type of things that you don't want to miss.
Yeah.
So take advantage of that, and it also creates that balance for your employee of
Mm.
work and personal activities.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and it gets back to, do they feel part of a family of people that are committed to a mission? And a lot of the intensity of contractors begins to dilute that. But even there, if contractors are part of your team, then they've got to be included and treated the same way, right? I mean, it's just part of life now. So managing today is a lot tougher than managing 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But there are tools out there, and there are creative people that can really think about. I was kind of fooled into the idea because when we started, developers used to sit with the business. Then in the 80s and 70s, they got pulled into an IT organization, right? And that was the first IT organization. Then in the 80s, they got so big, they had to move out of the building. So you got a little separation from the business. And then in the 90s, we started offshoring and outsourcing. So now you're not even in the country, and you're not, and now it has been so molecularized that getting substantial work done that require large numbers of people from different cultures, from different time zones, from different places. But that's not an excuse, right? If you're leading this group of people, to not create an environment where they could be productive and have a life and be healthy and love what they do in the morning when they wake up, right? Because that's the key. So, and I've seen you do it over and over again. Hopefully, you can share some of those stories with people that are struggling at this point. So,
Yeah, it's almost as important as your team, right? Is
mhm.
having time, dedicating time to listen to your internal partners, like
Mm-hmm.
engineering, like finance. You have to
Mm-hmm.
foster those relationships to help facilitate what are the priorities for the team
Mm-hmm.
and the alignment to those strategic goals. And I know you had another podcast on the CFO needs to be your close friend.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true because they're the ones that are paying the bill on what you're going to be focused in on, what you're going to be working on. They divvy out the budgets every year, so you need to be aligned with your engineering and finance counterparts and foster those relationships. So you can do that in your agile meetings. You can do those as part of one-on-ones as well to make sure. And we try to. We made a conscious effort to align ourselves organizationally in IT, very similar to how the business was
Mm-hmm.
organized, so that everybody knew who their partner was on the business side. So there was a VP in engineering for line haul that I was aligned to, because I supported line haul. That we just you have to go to lunch if you happen to be in the same general facility geographically. That's always an opportunity to meet for lunch and have those business discussions, but also those personal discussions. It's all about fostering
Yeah.
relationships so that you're aligned in your teams, both business and IT, especially in those agile settings. See the alignment and the cooperation that
Yeah.
both teams had. So
Yeah.
really,
And I
really,
think,
really important.
yeah, and again, I mean, if you're going to make that happen, you're going to have to formalize it. You're going to have to put some structure around it because the chance meeting at the cafeteria or in the hallway are pretty much gone now, right? I mean, last time I went to FedEx, I went and the buildings were empty. Not that people weren't working, but they weren't there. You could hang out in the hallway before and you might run into 10 people that were business partners or developers. Doesn't happen anymore. So I think we gotta, as a community, work together to figure out who's coming up with the best ideas as to how, and we should be sharing that with each other. So, Jeff, thanks for taking the time today. I know we're getting close to Thanksgiving, and hopefully have a nice long weekend off. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate your leadership and your sharing your ideas with us.
Well, thank you, Charlie, and to all the leaders out there. Remember, time is limited. Effective use of time will help you to be a better leader, both strategically and tactically, making better decisions, focusing in on the right things, the high value areas, promoting that strong employee engagement and internal partner engagement is really, really important to building high performing, high performing teams. So remember, the use of time is critical to your success as a leader. Don't waste it.
Yep. Great thoughts. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Charlie.